Well, I would like to welcome you, Lucy, to the Women's Power Hour show. Great to have you with us today.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
I tell you, I kind of almost wish everyone could see your lovely smiling face, but they'll never get that through the radio. It just is what it is. But Lucy is Lucy Buxton, LjB Coach Consultancy Limited. And I guess, Lucy, you know, the whole topic of this series is around self-care, its importance and how it shows up. And of course, that's in different areas of our life, whether we're talking about our mental well-being, physical, financial, all of those different things. But before we kind of get into your area of expertise, what would be really nice is for the listeners to find out a little bit more about you, who you are and why you do what you currently do.
I'm a nurse by training originally, and then over recent years I have retrained to be a coach and NLP practitioner, of which I'm on a journey with that, and in a couple of months I'm going to expand my skills further to be a master practitioner and even a trainer.
Excellent.
My journey with being a nurse started at a really young age. The first memory I've got is me as a 3-year-old in a little nurse's uniform, caring for my mum when she'd just come out of hospital. And I guess I'm a bit like a sticker rock. You know, you cut me through the middle and it's stamped in there. It's part of who I am. It's what I do.
Yes.
And I guess that probably links into the self-care thing, because when you're a nurse, when you're a carer, you just spend your time caring for everybody else, don't you?
Absolutely.
My career has been spread with both social care and the NHS. And I've worked for myself for a few years, and I work with social care providers, people employed in the sector, and with NHS organisations and trusts. And as a coach, you know, the people, those organisations, they're my niche. That's what I do. It's who I am.
Fantastic. What made you switch from employee to running your own business?
So like many of us, I had what we could say was a perfect storm. I was in a role where the company were changing and that change didn't align with me. And at the same time, my mum, who she'd been ill all my life, she'd struggled with her mental health all her life with depression. I now believe it to be reproduction related depression, hormone related depression. And she, in her later years, had developed dementia. She lived with dementia, so I cared for her and nursed her. And at this time, she became unwell, and I was nursing her more with my dad, and she passed away. And at the same time, my daughter became unwell, again with hormone-related problems.
Yes.
And I had this really perfect storm that was just terrific, and I had to make a choice.
Yeah.
And the choice was my family and me. And the only way I could see me moving forward and being the best daughter and mother that I could be was to put me at the centre of that decision, and to look at how I could build a world that met the needs and the roles that I had. And working for myself was the only option.
Always interesting to know, you know, how we shift from, because it is a big shift, you know, going from employee to starting your own business. So there is a big shift that happens, and that can impact us in so many ways. So I always love to kind of find out what it is that kind of drives that change. Right, Lucy, well, we are back. So next question that I wanted to ask for you, you've shared with us, you know, nursing has been that big part of your career. You're now a coach, NLP practitioner, you're kind of upgrading to master coach and all this other wonderful stuff, which of course builds this wonderful toolkit of resources that you can use to help people. How are you helping people and who are you helping?
I'm there. My true purpose is to inspire and support others to make the positive changes that they need. And that's, you know, it could be somebody that has a goal that they need somebody to, you know, support them through, coach them through, bounce ideas off. It could be somebody who has been through, you know, really difficult times over the last, you know, 14, 15, 16 months and has actually thought, I don't know that I want to do the role that I'm doing anymore.
Yeah.
Or, do you know what? I'm so scared of going into work every day. Or I can't take looking at another email. I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm frightened. And I come in to support people to unpick that and to deal with those negative emotions that they've collected over that period of time. It could be over a life, and to help them change the way that their patterns of behaviour are, the way that they do things, the way that they learn to cope with things and to see things from a different perspective, to help them get into a more, what I would call a resourceful state, a better way of being, so we can respond, we don't react, and actually ultimately to make people happier.
Yes, yeah. And do you find that your training, your nursing skills kind of really support that work that you're doing?
Massively so. And I think because I get it, I completely get it.
Yes.
The people I work with, their roles that I've done, you know, I started my nursing career as, you know, my actual working career as 15 as a care assistant. I've worked my way up. I know the pressures. I know what it's like to travel long hours, long days, stay away from your family. I know the responsibility of being on call and getting the phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I think the fact that I completely get it and somebody doesn't have to explain to me,
yes,
it really helps the other person. So I immediately step into their model of the world and I just get it, which means that they don't have to think about explaining or seeing my needs as the coach.
yes, absolutely.
And I also, throughout my career, you know, I've taken what works really well, but what doesn't work really well, and I'm able to look at things from a different perspective. And quite often, you know, when we're in this perfect storm, we can only see it from where we're sat. We don't see the other perspective, and we don't actually able to identify the facts of the situation, and that's where we end up being not resourceful and reacting.
Absolutely. We've got our blind spots, right? And we all have them. So I think sometimes it's also acknowledging, because I don't have any blind spots. We all have blind spots. Even those of us who are in the supporting roles of coaching and mentoring and training, we have blind spots. Hence, most of us have coaches too of some description, right? I mean, I certainly do, you know, and it's necessary. So it's not a bad thing to be able to accept that you have these blind spots. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because when we look to things like sports, you know, anyone who wants to do really well in sport obviously wouldn't think twice about trying to do it on their own. They would immediately go and get a coach. So why do we think it's any different in life that when we're having these tight and difficult moments, that it would be strange and bizarre to reach out to a coach?
I think that's quite interesting, because if you look at an athlete, it's about growth, it's about performance, about achieving the best that they can be. It's a really positively perceived thing. However, when we're not in a good place, when we're not performing particularly well, when we're really struggling, I think there's a lot of, you know, social constructs, culture, social media, all of that kind of stuff that's around us, and then ultimately the way we feel about ourselves, the way that we value or don't value ourselves, that says I can't reach out, I'd be ashamed, I'd be embarrassed, I'd be awkward, you know, or not even being able to acknowledge that, because I don't think it's perceived in a positive way by, you know, and that mindset, that perception has to change.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's what we're here to do, Lucy. So I'm loving that. And that is a really good and valid point, is that, you know, actually when people are in their lowest points, they feel quite often too embarrassed to say, you know, because it's almost like, how did I get here? You know, And yet that's the most vital time to get support.
Yeah, and it's that quite often people feel that they're a burden. It's not that they don't want to share, they don't have the value they hold in themselves to feel I won't be a burden, and that I don't want to be a burden is they're led from, you know, I guess a low self-esteem point of view.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I hear that completely. Okay, well, Lisa, let's just take another little break and we'll be right back with another question for you. Right, so Lucy, we've been talking to you about your previous career as a nurse and now as a coach. You've been able to share some wisdom about how you help people and who you help as well through your current role as a coach. But now let's turn the lens on you. Because you've worked in the care industry for many years, as you said, including now as a coach. So how easy have you found it, or do you find it, to make time for yourself, for your well-being? And what, if anything, kind of provided a wake-up call for you to do so?
So I very much prioritise self-care these days. It is at the top of my list. And I think that's because I've learnt that I value myself and taking care of me is important, and I weight that highly in my values, in my values levels. I've had a few experiences through my life that I think has kind of pushed me down this point of view, you know, whether that was a really bad pregnancy with my daughter a long time ago, you know, even, you know, I mentioned that I nursed my mum, and I realised that you can't care for somebody effectively without caring for yourself first.
Oh, music to my ears.
And, you know, I've said just so many families, relatives, loved ones over the years, you use nor ornament unless you look after you.
Yes.
Because that person needs you to be the best that you can be.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
They have to have something to fight for, hold on to, motivate them, just to be there. So around that point in time, I had to learn really to put me first. And then even more so over the last kind of 14, 15 months, I had COVID last year and I ended up with long COVID. So the way for me to recover was learning what worked for me. And one of the things that I've learned is that I need to walk, and I walk every day.
Wow.
I take the dog and the two of us go off.
Yes.
And that's our time, the two of us together. And I'm really mindful about that time, and it's very protected time. So I don't take my mobile phone. And, it's something that I know he needs too. So originally I got into it by putting his needs before my own. He needed to top up his sniff meter because otherwise he gets grumpy.
Yes.
And by learning from my dog, I learned that if I don't do my walk and have that 20 minutes of peace and quiet and away, being very present, then I can't process my own thoughts. I'm not contributing to my physical well-being, the fresh air, and actually building up that resilience again.
Yes.
I think the other thing as well around work, so I've done the long journeys, the long days, and where I probably put my role, I would say probably higher than maybe my family, that sounds dreadful, but I needed to earn the money.
Yes.
But it was simple little things, like I'd come back from work and my work bag, my specific work bag, over the weekend, or even in the evenings, it wouldn't be anywhere I could see it. I'd shut it in the cupboard so I couldn't see it. So I separated myself from work and personal life. So I have very clear boundaries, and boundaries are really healthy.
Yeah. And boundaries are necessary.
Yeah, they are. Because otherwise, you know, our behaviour we can tread on other people's toes when we shouldn't. You know, other people can tread on our toes. But if we let people know our boundaries, then actually we can function better. And it's only what, say, like you watch a group of dogs together, you know, or different animals, they will set their own boundaries. And if you step over it, you know, you'll get told. And that can be done politely and nicely just by having really good boundaries that are established. So if you can't get hold of me, I'm answering my phone, I'm walking my dog.
Yeah. And do you know what? Because I always say, you know, the thing is when we set boundaries, you know, it's important to obviously know why we're setting them and what they are, and then sharing them with the people in our lives so that they see them too. Because I believe people will treat you the way you treat yourself. So if you go around giving all of yourself, throwing all of your energy out there, why would anybody stop you? It's just like, yeah, I'll have that. Thank you very much indeed. So that whole point of having boundaries and letting people know is just the way, look, this is how I treat myself. This is how kind I am to me. And that for me kind of sets a standard of how people then treat you.
Yeah. I think it's also about accepting that we're worth it.
Yes.
And quite often, and certainly specifically for women, society or culture, or, you know, we mustn't talk about hormones. Oh, mustn't talk about hormones, you know, it's just, you know, it's just so much of us we've been told,
yes,
filtered, social media, you know, how we've been raised. All of that stuff says, as a woman, I should not value me. And that's not true.
absolutely.
I've got a lot to give. You know, I can carry a child. I can grow a child. You know, when we think about it, we can do incredible things.
We do.
We do incredible things. And you know, it's about saying, I'm worthy of putting me first.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more, Lucy. I think that is so true. That whole thing about self-worth and that whole point of understanding that a lot of the stories that we're living by are the ones society has put on us and around us. And the wake up bit is about realizing that and just saying, actually, no, I need to do this differently.
Yeah. And I think having the courage or the inner strength, and if you haven't got that, finding something externally that supports you until you have got that,
yeah,
until you can grow that in yourself.
Beautifully said, beautifully said. Well, Lucy, you know, it's been brilliant. I think you've given some really meaningful insights for the listeners to kind of wrap their thoughts around themselves and not to have to make any kind of decisions on, just kind of sit with those things that they've heard and see what comes up for them, because I think that's really important. What I'd like to do is ask you, if you know, what advice would you give to women with regards to self-care and its importance?
I think as women, we have lots of different roles, you know, mums, daughters, sisters, aunts, career, friends. And I think to realise that the place we need to start is with ourselves, because the biggest role or relationship we have is with ourselves. And I think what I would like to say is that relationship, you are worthy of that relationship, and to know that, to be able to have other really lovely relationships and bonds and do things, to know that it all starts with you and how you value you, and to know that you can have choices, you can say no, but it starts with you. And you have to, with anything, start somewhere. And if that's challenging those beliefs that you have or you hold, and that's something you want to do, because some people might not want to, and that's cool.
Yes.
But you got to start somewhere. And if you can't do that externally, then maybe find somebody to support you with that, because if you don't believe in you, there will be somebody that does believe in you.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So true. And I think that's kind of where, coaching and things come into their own, because those limiting beliefs, the kind of low beliefs that somebody has about themselves, and maybe they've been devalued, and that's probably why they are where they are. And actually being able to connect with somebody who can help you to reevaluate yourself, reevaluate life, and get you to the place where you suddenly realize, oh my gosh, I am so much more than what I thought. Because that's like a really big breakthrough moment when that happens. And suddenly all the things that you had been telling yourself you couldn't do, or that wasn't possible for you, you start to think, actually, I'm onto something here. I can pretty much do the things that I have dreamt about, wished for, hoped for. Yeah, changes the course of your life.
Yeah, I mean, as individuals, we have massive potential, but a bit like seeds, they've got to be in the right environment to flourish and grow properly, haven't they?
Yeah, nice metaphor, like that. Excellent. Well, Lucy, I'm sure that some of our listeners will have completely connected with what you've been saying, and would like to reach out to you in some shape or form. So how can they do that? How can they find out more about you and your work?
Yeah, so you can email me directly from my website, which is www.ljbcoachconsultancy.co.uk. You can find me on LinkedIn. I have a business page under the same name, or find me by me, Lucy Buxton. I've also got a Facebook page as well, LjB Coach Consultancy. So yeah, find me there.
Brilliant. So there's Lucy. She's on social media. She's on LinkedIn. You've got the website address. If what Lucy's been talking about resonates with you, please, reach out. I kind of want to bring all these amazing women into your space so that you can hear their wise words and advice, but also be able to connect with them, and perhaps, find that person that's the right fit for you on the next part of your journey. Lucy, what can I say? I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining us today. Thank you so much for your wisdom, your insights, and for, kind of really sharing for the listeners today.
Thank you for having me. It's been great fun.
Excellent. Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you.